space for them to do it in that way. I mean, I highly recommend reading the book Aware Baby by Lael Stone, because that really breaks it down of how to work with it and do it. And again, I absolutely always come back to tuning into, does this feel okay for you? You know, this for me was the answer I'd been looking for through my whole parenting journey. Even when I had my older 2 kids, I knew what I didn't want to do. I knew that I didn't want to smack them, and I didn't really want to use bribes and rewards, but I just didn't know how else to do it. And then when I discovered this, I was like, oh my God, this is like the magic answer, because it really respects them and it respects me, and it's how we can all get our needs met.
Can you tell us a little bit about the other key concepts of aware parenting, like loving limits?
Yeah, so really with aware parenting, I mean, there's the kind of main foundation ones, which is about just listening to feelings. So that's that when a child is upset, it's about holding a calm, loving space for them to process without shutting them down or stopping them. So that's with tears, it's with tantrums, those kind of things. It's also using play, as I said before, to help them process whatever's going on. But then there's other things that we talk about in aware parenting, like control patterns and loving limits. So a loving limit would be, what that would look like is that, let's just say your child is, you can see that they're a little bit agitated, they're a little bit off, and they're picking up their train and they're wanting to throw it at their sister's head or something like that, you know. And you might say to them, you know, can you stop that please, honey? I don't want to do that. And then they look at you and they just do it again whilst they're looking you in the eye doing it. So that would be a time to set what we call a loving limit, which is a boundary, a limit to say, I'm not going to let you do that anymore. And what the loving limit is about is giving the child a place to push up against a no. You know, so it's that when you set that limit, you know, the fact that you might go over there and take the train out of your child's hand and look her in the eye and say, look, I'm not going to let you throw that anymore. You know, that is enough to make her perhaps tip over the edge, to really rage, to go, no, I want my train back, or, you know, give it to me. But that loving limit, what it does is it serves the purpose of setting a boundary for your child to push up against, so that they can let those feelings out about how they feel. And the key thing for the parent then is just to sit and listen to those feelings around it. It could also, loving limits can be beautiful if your child's really whiny or really whinging a lot. You know, that's often when they need a loving limit. So that could be, you know, they want the blue cup, right? And you've given them the red cup, but they're really, really whiny. You could actually, even though you could give them the cup they want, you could actually just say, you know what, honey, I'm not going to give you that cup right now. And that is often enough for them to just tip them over the edge, you know, to let out what they're feeling. And once they've let that out, then usually they come back into balance and they feel good, you know, and then we've got kind of harmony again. Mm-hmm. So loving limits are, you know, some people might just call them boundaries. They might, I don't usually, they're not really like consequences. They're more just about setting a boundary that your child can push up against to allow those feelings to come out. So sometimes how I might see that in the teenage years is that if my daughter I'm seeing is kind of being, you know, doing a bit too much, and I can see she's really just a bit emotional and teary and she probably needs a good cry, and then she's like, can I go over to such and such's house even though she's been out, you know, all day, I might just set a limit then and say, you know what, honey, I don't think so. I think you need some quiet, or I'm going to say no to that. And she might just feel a bit outraged about that, and then usually she'll have a big cry and then she'll feel better. And then she'll kind of always go, thanks, Mum. I kind of needed that, you know. So loving limits is a way of setting a boundary lovingly, you know. So it's not that, stop that. If you do that, you're going to have to go outside, or you're not going to have more dinner. It's not with aggression. It's not with anger. It's not with a consequence of doing something. It's about a connected limit that says, I see you and I see that you're having a hard time. So I'm going to set a limit for you to push up against, but I'm going to be here to help you process what that feels like. Mm. That's the key thing with aware parenting, is that we're allowed to say no, right? Because no's are sometimes really important. But the trick with aware parenting is that you say no, but then you're there to help that child work through how that no feels for them. They're allowed to be angry that you've said no to that. They're allowed to be disappointed that you won't let them go on the swing anymore. They're allowed to be mad that they've got a new baby brother that they never really asked for. Like, they're allowed to have feelings. Our job is to listen and help them process that. So loving limits is that control patterns, as I touched on before, might be something that a child does to avoid feeling what they're feeling. So we all have control patterns. As adults, we do it. Some people use Facebook as a control pattern. Some people drink wine at night because they want to numb themselves out. We all do it. It's just when a control pattern becomes really, it rules life on a lot of levels for kids. So it's massive attachments, perhaps to dummies or blankets or those kind of things. It's the need to, a franticness that a child needs to do something or have something that is basically numbs them out a little bit. And with that, what we're looking at is that there's some feelings there that the child's avoiding, and what that control pattern does is it stops the feelings coming up. And so then what we need to do is perhaps, if we can, remove that control pattern so we can listen to how the feelings happen. But you want to do that gently and considerately, and again, in Aletha Salter's books, Tears and Tantrums, which is a brilliant book for any kids from like age 1 to 8, she talks a lot about it in there. So, I say to parents, if you see that your child has got a massive codependence on something, whether that's a teddy or a blanket or and if you're happy for them to have that, that's okay. But if you're seeing that it becomes a problem, then usually what that's doing is it's avoiding a whole lot of feelings, and we want to help the kids get their feelings out so they don't need that.
I feel like for a lot of people listening out there, and definitely for me, with the control patterns, almost we need to aware parent ourselves at the same time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm curious because you're talking about loving limits, and with your example about the blue cup and the red cup, is there a balance between taking away your child's power or autonomy to be able to choose, what colour cup they have, compared to setting that limit?
Yeah, totally. Look, whenever you can give your child the opportunity to feel powerful and to have choice, absolutely. I'm really big on that. The only time I would not necessarily give them that cup is if I could see that there was a whole lot of feelings bubbling there that they weren't working towards. So if I can see that my child really needs to have a bit of a release, that's the only time I would usually set a limit, which wasn't necessarily about them. Because here's the thing, if you give your child the red cup and they want the blue cup, and they're really whining and whinging, and then you give them the blue cup, they probably will just keep whining and whinging. Like they will still be feeling it hasn't resolved what they want for them. Yep. So, we, as far as autonomy and power, I'm massively big on, what shorts do you want to wear today? Or where would you like to sit there? Or what, giving them lots of choice so they feel free to do what they need to. But it's only really that loving limit would be in the sense of if they're they're stuck on something. They're stuck in some big feelings and they're not moving it. That's perhaps where I would do that in that way, because it just acts as the catalyst for that. An excellent game that my daughter created probably about 2 years ago when she was about 7, is around power and stuff like that, is she created a game called Tali's Rules. Her name's Tali. And basically what Tali's Rules is she gets to make the rules on anything. For 20 minutes, we'd play a game, and it was Tali's Rules. So she would tell me when to walk in, where to put my bag, where I had to sit, what I was allowed to drink. Like, it was just her way of basically finding her own power again, usually after she'd been at school all day. And it ended up usually being hilarious because I would do whatever she wanted, and then she'd sometimes make me do stupid stuff, and I'd be like, I can't do that, and then she'd laugh. And but Tali's Rules, she would often just go, I need to play Tali's Rules, because she was like, I feel really disempowered and I need to find my way of finding that back. Yeah. And then after the end of 20 minutes of playing that, she would feel connected, she would have got what she needed to, and then, she didn't need to be in charge, like it was okay. So I think that, whenever there's the opportunity for a child to feel like they have some power, that's a great thing. But usually, again, it's those limits or stopping that would be if there's something else going on around it.
And going back to before about aware parenting ourselves in a way while we're parenting our children, what sort of challenges would a parent expect to face while they're taking this approach?
So that's an excellent question. And, for me, aware parenting is not just about with your child, it's you. Really, when we're aware parenting our children, we're aware parenting ourselves. So the way that I look at it is pretty simply, so that if a child's having a hard time and, they've got some feelings they want to get out, if you're feeling good and anchored and centered and you can hold a space for them calmly whilst they let their feelings out and the child moves through their feelings, then brilliant. Then that's usually about what the child needs, and you've just been that anchor. But if a child's having a hard time and you're starting to get really triggered, you're starting to get frustrated or angry or pissed off or whatever, then that is about you as the parent. So whenever we start to have a reaction around our child, then usually what that says to me is that there's some feelings in there that are triggering you from your own childhood. There's feelings in there that you need to look at so that you then can let those go and come back and be that anchored space for your child. So I usually look at it that way. When things are going great, you can hold a space for your kid, you're feeling really good, it's all good. But when you start to have reactions, that's where you've got to go, okay, there's something going on for me. So I usually say, make a mental note. Oh, I'm having a big reaction here. Okay, I need to just hold whatever I can for my child, and then I've got to go back and look at what my reaction was. So some ways to deal with that as a parent is to have what we call a listening partner, which is big in hand-in-hand parenting, which is another really similar parenting philosophy. A listening partnership is someone that you can ring or talk to and just go, oh my God, this is what's happening. I feel like this, I feel like that. And their job is just to listen to you, much like what you are doing for your child. A listening partner is not there to fix you. They're not there to give you advice. They're just there to be that beautiful, safe space for you to vent. You can swear your head off. You can talk about how crap it feels. Whatever it is that you need to get out, is the listening partner is there to actually just listen and hold a space for you so that you can process whatever's going on for you, that then enables you to then come back and be as clear as possible to hold that space for your child. And I think that's one of the things of why Aware Parenting is quite confronting for a lot of people, is because we're a society that doesn't really like to look at our own crap. We like to just say that it's somebody else's fault. And what Aware Parenting does is it makes you look at your own shit, and we've all got crap there because nobody was brought up in a perfect world. So there's stuff there for all of us. And our children so beautifully mirror it back to us. So when whatever our child's doing that will trigger us is usually your child trying to say to you, come on, Mum, you need to sort out this piece so I can move forward. Mm-hmm. So it's a massive part of Aware Parenting, is looking at what buttons get pushed in you, what triggers come up for you, what you need. So whether that's just a bit of self-care helps you process, whether it's going and talking to a listening partner, whether it's talking to someone professionally, the more you can look at your own story and process within it, then the clearer vessel you are to just help your child move through their stuff, and they go hand in hand together. I don't really believe that you can do Aware Parenting if you don't look at your own story, because then you'll never move and grow, and your kids won't necessarily move through their stuff either, because they're wanting you to move and grow. I look at it this way. Our kids come into the world to teach us, and they're always saying to us, Mum, sort out this bit, come on, move, grow, do all that, so that I don't have to carry your story. I don't have to carry the burdens of the stuff that you won't look at. Dan Siegel, in one of his books, says the biggest gift you could give your child is to know your own story. And I believe that's 100% true. The more we are aware of our own crap and triggers, and the easier we work through that, then the freer our children are to be who they need to be.
So are there any resources? You've mentioned a few of Aletha Salter's books, but are there any other resources out there to support parents, and also in terms of listening partners? How do we go about the process of finding and choosing a listening partner?
Yeah. So, have a look at Aletha Salter's books. You can just Google her and you'll find her stuff. There's also the Aware Parenting Institute, which is a website, but it's not the most fabulous looking website, so it has got some resources on it. I definitely refer people to my friend Marion Rose, who's up in Byron Bay. She's got a great website full of heaps and heaps and heaps of articles and free videos, and she just talks about Aware Parenting so beautifully. So that's a magnificent website to go through. There's quite a few other Aware Parenting instructors all over the world who have beautiful websites as well. So you can just Google Aware Parenting and see a lot of them have got great resources on their websites. I'm in Melbourne. We have a Melbourne Aware Parenting page, which is for people who live in Melbourne that have a connection with Aware Parenting. And we have, I run workshops, we have monthly catch-ups, those kind of things. So there's a great community that you can tap into. And also through Facebook, you can post a question and you can learn a lot. There's also an Aware Parenting Facebook group too, that has got lots of great posts and questions and stuff you can learn a lot from. And what I've often seen in the Aware Parenting group is that people will say, I'm looking for a listening partner, and others say I'm looking for one too. So depending on where you are around the world, you can find someone hopefully in your state or country or whatever that you can set it up with. So I know for Melbourne, for me, I set up quite a few listening partnerships. It's like It's like setting people up on a blind date. But if people contact me saying I need a listening partner, I'll just usually put it out there to my network and say, does anybody want someone, and see if that's a good fit, to see if they can connect up together. So there's a lot of great resources out there. I recommend reading some of Elisa's books, going and looking at Marion's videos, those kind of things, and getting along to a workshop if you can, if they're around, because you learn a lot by being in the group with people and hearing other people's stories and those kind of things. I find if you are going to do aware parenting, though, you need a community to do it with, because it is very different to mainstream parenting. The mainstream world is very much about shutting feelings down, and it's about how it all appears on the outside. And this is really about bringing it back to real.